Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bundesliga Show, brought to you by Over the Bar. Tuning in again this evening for another Matchweek review of the Bundesliga, Matchweek 7. We're going to get into it in just a moment's time. And before we start shedding tears about it being the international break again, of course, well, I have to introduce and say hello to my fellow co-hosts this evening tuning in. Mark and Peter, how are we both doing this fine evening?
Yeah, not bad at all. Yeah, just enjoying the late summer here in Germany as well. I know that it's nice over where Peter is too, isn't it, in Karlsruhe?
Oh, it is absolutely beautiful. We have a wonderful weekend of football to discuss this week. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it goes in the title that we decided to go with this week. Worldies everywhere. Some serious strikes and great bits of attacking football, which we will lord over in just a moment's time. Evening, Danny. Hope you're doing well this evening. Thank you for checking in. Just before we do, a little bit of admin as per usual. So make sure you smash a thumbs up on the video, please. Again, as we always say, you wouldn't believe how much help it actually does if you just do that little click. And it pushes our videos out a little bit more. So always appreciated. Comment along if you're watching right now live. Let us know how your team's got on reflection, if they've done well, if they've done badly. And even if you've got questions for us, we welcome it all. And of course, press that red button, subscribe to the channel. We'll try and get some content out during the international break. But us lads also do need a rest every so often. But we'll be back with we'll be back with the fantasy show and the prediction show in due course, of course, after the international break is over. But, chaps, we get to enjoy a little bit more Bundesliga glory before we go into international mode. So, of course, we're going to crack on with our featured four this evening. And in fourth place this week, the Friday night fixture didn't disappoint, as per usual. Hence the hashtag always watch the Friday night fixture. Gladbach hosting, struggling Mainz side. And I mean, we've had both of these sides in our featured for a lot so far this season. For, maybe Mainz's point of view, not in a good sense, and Gladbach because we've just been trying to figure out what on earth they're doing as a club, but it sure is entertaining. So they've made it in again. Gladbach got onto the front foot and were looking very strong in this match early on and did get themselves ahead through a flying Florian Neuhaus, but were pegged back by our first wonder strike of the weekend by Gruder from a short free kick and absolutely wellies what are the bejesus out of it, whatever you want to say. And it nestles to make it 1-1. And Mark, it's nice actually to have a show where we can go back to being more positive about Mainz because, they had to weather a few storms. But, I mean, just reflecting on the Gruder goal, but in particular, Mainz's general play, and that second goal was a lovely team goal to get them 2-1 up and almost taking all the points. We'll get to the Scally goal as well in a moment's time. But first of all, your reflections on Mainz and being able to put a bit more of a positive tint on it this week rather than the negativity that we've maybe been, eulogizing about them lately.
Yeah, I thought it was a really positive performance from the Pfalzers. Yeah, I was really impressed with the general play, the fight that they showed. And I felt they were very unlucky not to come away with 3 points, in truth. I think, if they had a few more wins under the belt, they would probably have seen that 2-1 through. But obviously a bit of a lack of confidence in the last 15 minutes led to a bit of an onslaught from the home side, which obviously eventually ended in that screamer from Scally equalising the game. But yeah, I felt there were some good performances. I mean, the young man Gruder, only 19 years old, he's another man from the KSC Academy, Peter. Yeah, I mean, what do they have in the water there in Karlsruhe? Because there's so many players come through that academy. It's just a pity the team are not that good themselves, really. But yeah, he is another man from Karlsruhe, came through their academy. obviously got the goal, his first Bundesliga goal, and he couldn't quite believe it, really, could he? I don't think, the fact that he'd scored. Like, he put his head in his hands, and, you know, it was quite a nice moment, the fact that he realised he'd scored such a screamer, you know, his first Bundesliga goal. He'll never forget that one. A beautiful moment. But yeah, after that, I felt as though Mainz really grew into the game. I thought they played really well. They looked a bit more solid defensively, which has been a massive, massive issue this season. You know, Van den Berg was much better than he was last week against Leverkusen. I thought he had a solid game. You know, Sentner, who hasn't probably, you know, the club captain, hasn't been the best this season, but he made some big saves in there at 1-1. You know, not world-class saves, but they were big saves that he needed to make, and he managed to do that. And then, as you mentioned, that really, really nice goal, which was eventually finished by Barkok. I thought that was a fantastic team goal, which we've not seen that much of from Mainz this season. You know, we've not seen those kind of moments. But, you know, Leandro Barreiro was fantastic. He looked back to his best in this game, which was great to see, a key player for the Null Thumpers. But, yeah, I mean, Ajok, we didn't see that much of him, really, despite, obviously, he's the talisman, and despite the fact it was such a good performance, I felt, from Mainz. So, you know, I thought we would have seen him a little bit more involved, but he's not quite hit the straps, really, this season. But I saw enough in there from the Mainz team to make me believe that, you know, they can stay up. And we were a little bit doubtful the last 2 weeks because things just didn't seem to be improving for them at all, did they? But this was a gritty performance with enough quality as well, particularly from the likes of Gruda and Barreiro. And yeah, it was a performance that made me believe again that Mainz can retain the status in this league and overcome this horrible run of form under Bo Svensson. Obviously, the next game after the break is Bayern Munich at home, which is not a very nice fixture to come into, to be honest. But, you know, they might be able to catch Bayern Munich cold, and, you know, they have a very good record in that fixture as well at home against Bayern Munich. They won the last 3 years, incredibly, at home against Bayern. So, you know, it's unlikely they'll make it 4 out of 4, but judged on this performance, I think it is somewhat possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to have some positivity around the 05ers. And Peter, we'll come to you and maybe allow you to talk a little bit about Joe Scally's effort. Were you pleased as punch to see that? I admit, I thought it was deflected at first on first viewing because of the angle, the way it lifted over Zentner. But what a stride to earn a, well, again, a valuable point for Gladbach.
Well, yes, as somebody who keeps close tabs on Joe Scally for, well, not doing the Deep Scout Americans in the Bundesliga column this season, but for 3 seasons, I watched every minute of all of his matches and sat there and took copious notes. A lot of hard work went into that column. Had to watch Josh Sargent with SV Werder Bremen, had to watch Matthew Hoppe with Schalke, had to watch Timothy Tillman and Julian Green in every last Spielvereinigung Greuther Fürth match. That was, you know, those are some things that are tough to do. But that is Scally's second Bundesliga goal. He scored the first one round 7 against Wolfsburg in the 21-22 campaign. Runa actually my colleague at Bully News had the pleasure of interviewing Scally and asking him about what it felt like to score that goal in his first, because he had gotten off to, you know, we were really excited to see him. And then I think it was it Diaby who completely toasted him in his second game against Leverkusen. So he got his welcome to the Bundesliga card, but then he recovered. But then he lost out his starting place to Stefan Leiner a little bit later that year. He lost it last year as well, under both the Adi Hütter and the Daniel Fark regimes. And it looked to be the case that he had lost his starting 11 place now under his third consecutive head coach in as many years. But he came on as a defensive substitution, scored that absolute dream goal. The only thing that left me a little bit disappointed afterwards is that I was watching the DAZN broadcast, and Scally was unable to conduct his post-match interview in German. I very, very much wanted to call him up and say, you know, as a huge Americans in the Bundesliga fan and columnist, if anyone needs some tutoring services, I'm available. You know, for Americans in the top flight. A good result for both sides. I think that both of them can pick up momentum from this. It's great to, as Mark alluded to have some positive things to say about Mainz. I would not discount them against Bayern at all. after the international break. As we know, the Bayern Stars are coming back from a somewhat impragmatically planned trip to the United States to play 2 games, and are going to be a little bit jet lagged. I think that there's a lot of positives that Mainz can take from this result. Actually, it was El Ghazi who set up the Cock goal. So we should mention him, the free agent signing. We're also, Bundesliga fans are very, very anxious to see Joshua Guida-Vogie back in action once Svensson deems that he is fit. Dominic Hardcore, I should say, had to pass on the starting 11 because of illness. But he can work in there alongside Barrero. And Sylvain Widmer should be back on his way from injury. So we have injuries clearing up. I like what I saw from Jae-Sung Lee in this match. Ajorque got the start surprisingly and didn't do much, but Svensson is a very, very good head coach. He's staying with Lee and Ajorque despite their form struggles. And with Gladbach, we talked about some positives concerning them last week, including the fact that Luca Netz suddenly looks like he's come to play and can serve and as an advanced winger. That's great news for him. Honorat improving, Alassane Playa, another good game from him. And I didn't realize until Mark said it last week how much Rocco Reitz and Florian Neuhaus look like one another. But he had an excellent point. I had a little bit difficulty telling them apart. So, the relegation race is really, really getting interesting now. It really is, with the Darmstadt result this weekend, with the fact that Mainz should be able to start picking up points again soon, with the fact that Augsburg might do a little bit better with a new head coach after the international break. We'll see about that. The only side that really seems to be consistently bad is Köln. So we should have very, very interesting relegation race and this result helps it out a lot, I think.
Indeed. Well, we shall move on to our third match of the countdown, and it is to Stuttgart. We go with their 3-1 win over Wolfsburg, a comeback win after Gerhardt had applied the finish to put Wolfsburg 1-0 up, probably deservedly so in that first half, but then gentlemen, the Girassi show will roll on until, hopefully until the rest of the season, well beyond, with his second hat-trick of the season, his 13th in 7, a new Bundesliga record. Running out of words to describe the way that Girassi is playing right now, the calmness that he applies, his finishing now is scary, and he's really thrusting Stuttgart into positions that I would not have in my wildest dreams expected to see them this season, and it is truly enjoyable from a biased point of view to witness and see. I, as a Stuttgart sympathizer and fan, even when seeing Wolfsburg going 1-0 up at away at our place, I was still quite confident, however long there was left, that we would comfortably come back and win, which is a very strange mindset for me to have in recent times. So I'll go to you, Peter, first. Thoughts on the match in general, and how, we don't want to start going too crazy, but how far the Stuttgart run and can maybe go this season.
Well, first, when we were discussing Harry Kane's hat trick a couple of weeks ago, people were asking whether or not this qualified as a hat trick under German terms. It does. But what happened with Girassi is he scored 3 uninterrupted goals in the same half, which is what Germans call a Lupenreiter hat trick, which you could translate as a flawless hat trick, kind of like a flawless victory in Mortal Kombat or something. The Girassi is exerting fatalities. Amazing calmness and composure on the ball in those two finishes. I mean, incredible how the touches that he employed before finishing off those chances was surreal. Another little German vocab lesson. Those are called Zuckerzähler, or sugar goals, because they are just that nectarous and they are that sweet. I wanted to point out that in response to the question of how far Stuttgart can go this season, that Sebastian Hoeneß has turned in 2 tactical masterclasses in a row. As a matter of fact, what he did in this one is that in the 61st minute, he took off Pascal Stenzel, who was actually having a very, very difficult time on the Stuttgart right, and Leveling, and brought on Undav, who scored a brace last week, and Silas, who ended up assisting, I think, the third goal. Yeah. And so he basically reformatted into a 3-4-1-2. And Undav was actually tearing up and drawing lane coverage on those 2 late goals. So this was a tactical masterclass from Hoeneß. We'll get to some other ones in some of the subsequent matches that we're going to discuss. This was an absolute tactician's delight weekend. And so Hoeneß is making all of the right moves. I have no idea why he couldn't do so at Hoffenheim, but he has absolutely, just as he did last week in bringing on Undav and reformatting to a 2-striker set, he did the same thing this week, and it produced amazing results. So he has the Midas touch, Sebastian Hoeneß does. I don't know if Uncle Uli has pumped him full of magic Bratwurst or what's going on, but he's been absolutely amazing. So I've talked a lot about Stuttgart there. Mark, perhaps want to talk about Stuttgart some more, or Wolfsburg. I should also mention German national team nominated Chris Führig.
Yes.
What?
Yeah. Wow. Incredible. Yeah. I wanted to mention him actually because, I've been a long-time critic. I think regular watchers of this show know that I've been a long-term critic of Chris Führig. But I mean, if you know, Hoeneß has been, Uncle Uli has pumped his nephew full of magic Bratwurst, and what has he pumped Chris Führig full of? I really don't know, because he has been unbelievable this season. Really, he looks like Messi reinforced. You know what I mean? Literally, he's so good. Like this performance was superb. I felt really, and it's not just this week. It's been the last 4 or 5 weeks, to be honest. He's been so good this season, and he deserves the call up, in my opinion, based on his performance this season. I think me and Peter were talking about, like, last time we met in Sinsheim, we were talking about, like, what can Germany do to get back on track? They've got to start looking at some of these more obscure players, the likes of Anton Stach, Grisha Promo, who also had a really good game, which we'll talk about later. But I mean, it turns out that Chris Führig has outdone them all and got himself the call up, which is just incredible, really. But I mean, it's testament to what Stuttgart are doing. They've just been superb. I actually didn't think they were that good in the first half. I thought they were really struggling, to be honest. I really did. I thought Wolfsburg were far superior, a very capable side in their own right, but they just ran into a Stuttgart team who just can't do anything wrong at the moment. And, Wolfsburg played well. Gerhardt with his first goal since March. I thought it was a nice finish. And they deserved the lead at that point when they took the lead after about 37, 38 minutes. That was a deserved lead for the away side. I thought Thiago Tomas deserves a mention too against his former club. Like, how many shots did he have? But he just could not beat Nubel in the Stuttgart goal at all. He must have had 3 or 4 shots on target in the game, and he just couldn't beat him, against his former club. Well, actually, when I was at Stuttgart in February, March time, he scored one of the goals, actually, for Stuttgart, ironically. Yeah. So, he obviously got a rare start. I don't think he's been playing that much under Niko Kovac this season, but obviously I think Kovac realized he wanted to play against his former club. But again, I think the issue with Wolfsburg is how many players do they have? Seriously, like, they must have one of the biggest rosters in the league, really. Like, their bench is just stacked with quality, but it's still that same old problem. Does Niko Kovac know his best 11? I'm still not 100% sure. It's been better this season, but the results still, there's still too many defeats in there. This is the 3rd defeat in 7 games, which is, they shouldn't be losing that many, really. But I think Wolfsburg have got potential, but they need to find in my opinion, like a more settled 11. They're not in Europe this season, so there's no excuse really for all this rotation and things. And but there is potential in there for Wolfsburg. I thought, Lacroix looks back to close to his best. Arnold is, for me, a really good player. I don't know why he never gets around the German national team, to be honest. Maxi Arnold, I'm a big fan of his. He seems to have been overlooked for some years, really. Peter, do you know why he's always been overlooked for Germany? Because he's always looked a good player to me.
I've written many articles on Maxi Arnold, commenting on that situation specifically, and it's because there's so many German midfielders. It's just that they were so deep at that position. I was actually rather disappointed not to see him get a call up this spring under Flick. I thought he really very much deserved a chance. Actually, so on the topic of German internationals who are struggling a little bit for Wolfsburg, Riedler Baku was one of the ones who gave away the ball, as did Sesiga, the other center half there. Yeah, Riedler Baku is a player that many of us Germans really wanted to succeed. A Mainz native. He's named after Karl-Heinz Riedler.
Wow.
Well, his real name is Bote Baku, but his father called him Riedler after Karl-Heinz Riedler. So it's a shame to see him struggling there as well. I mean, in German footballing circles, there's not going to be too many tears for Wolfsburg. After all, it is the company team. We'd much rather see a traditional team like Stuttgart turn around here. But as you pointed out, I mean, they were the vastly superior side until we got that tactical change from Hoeneß, who has the absolute the golden hand, the goldenes Händchen, as Germans call it. He is doing everything right. Absolutely everything right.
Yeah, it's lovely to see. A couple of comments in from Travis, of course, friend of the show. We had him on to predict how Stuttgart season might go, how we might reflect on that pre-season.
Hey, Travis, can I say that I absolutely love that show that Travis was on, and the fact that he had a little Fritzler, the Stuttgart alligator mascot, in the back of him. I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So to answer Travis's question, no, I've not read all of the books behind me. But you know what? You had a cooler backdrop because you had Fritzler.
It was an epic background, in fairness. And well, Travis has asked about Undav as well. How well can he play in the Bundesliga? It's just refreshing from a Stuttgart point of view to have those options on the bench currently. And Undav, may well rightly come into the starting 11 at some point in time. But having Undav and Silas to come on and change a game for you in that manner is something that I don't think Stuttgart have been able to do in recent seasons at all. And that, well, there's an over-reliance on Girassi from a goals point of view, but Undav, Silas, Furyk are now capable of doing that at present. So it's super refreshing to see and very, very enjoyable. Alas, we won't turn it into the VFB show just yet. There's always time for that. We shall move on to our second game of the featured four this evening, and it was an incredibly entertaining late show in the Saturday late game, as Bremen were denied a point late on as Hoffenheim struck to make it 3-2, and a first real large impact by Marius Bülter, who we've seen in different guises in this Hoffenheim side, the way that he's been utilised and then, kind of subsequently been playing off the bench. But Mark, come straight to you on this. Again, we can kind of talk about Bremen in a more positive sense. We'll get to Hoffenheim and how well things are going for Pellegrino Matarazzo. But, Bremen again, improvements from the last few weeks, but they're just not able at the moment to get those points. Obviously, we've seen the news recently about Naby Keita's injury, which just, super disappointing for everyone involved. Unfortunately, said troubles were probably easily predicted when the transfer went through. But anyway, Bremen showed a bit of character, a couple of big goals from Schmidt and Steger, but ultimately came up short and haven't been able to get the 3 points on this occasion. What were your thoughts on Bremen showing before we get on to the away side?
Yeah, I thought going for, like we've seen, for me, this match kind of summed up both teams' seasons so far, because I feel as though Bremen going forward, they've got quality, they have got goals in the team. Mitchell Weiser, he's really found his form again, and I thought he played a superb pre-assist for the Schmid goal, which was the first equaliser in the end. That was a really nice goal from them. The nice play from Weiser, playing it into Dux, who squared it for Schmid, who got the deflected goal. But I just feel as though, laughing at Samuel's comment as well there, that's a good one. Yeah, sorry guys about that one, but
Who
yeah,
the hell is Hugo Larsson coming? Come on now.
Yeah, I know. My boys Heidenheim, I've been so impressed with them, but where were they this week? You cost me, guys. I tipped you as my big shock this weekend, and you just didn't turn up, lads. So yeah, I won't be backing you again next time. But yeah, anyway, back to Bremen. Yeah, so I think Weiser was superb in the game. Really, that pre-assist was great. Dux, he's not really back to his goal-scoring form, but he did some quality touches in this match. Schmid is always a danger from that attacking midfield position. I think one of the issues for Bremen is, in some ways, I would say they're too attacking, actually, in some ways. There's no press at all. It's so easy to play through them. It's almost frightening, really. Like, you saw it with that first goal. Like, as good a player as Grisha Prömel is, and he really is a good player. Like, he's been one of my stars of the season this season, actually, so far. But, I mean, the time he was given to play that ball through was just downright ridiculous, really. And it was too easy for that first Bayer goal. And, again, for the second goal, no press when Prömel smashed that really sweet strike past Pavlenka. But I think this is the problem with Bremen, that they may be a little bit too attacking, which is great to watch. It's really fun to watch. But, I mean, they're conceding so many goals. And if you look, a lot of the goals they concede are from, like, breakaways from the opposition. They lose the ball deep in their own half. Then it just takes 2 or 3 passes to completely pick them apart. And I think the young man Lee Nen, I think that's how you say his name. Yeah, he was brought in to be their kind of like defensive mid, like ball winner, but he's been in and out of form so far. I think he played well in a couple of games, but he's not really had the desired effect in that Bremen team so far. And they're a fun team to watch, Bremen. You've got to watch all their matches, because there's always at least 5-6 goals in all of them. But the problem is, most of them are in the back of the Bremen net. That's the issue for them at the moment. And they're going to be a team that score goals. They've got goals from all over the pitch, but they've got to sort out this midfield from a defensive perspective. They've got to improve the press. They've got to close down better. And I don't know, maybe they will have to drop one of those strikers back and put an extra midfielder in there, because the teams are finding it too easy to play through them. That's the problem for Bremen at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Some good thoughts there, Mark. Peter, what about a Hoffenheim perspective? As mentioned, things are really starting to look rosy in the Pellegrino Matarazzo garden. Finding results, comeback wins, showing some real, beef up front. Bayer really impressing. Prömel settling in perfectly. And what a timely, thing that one of their other new signings, Buchler, was able to get, what would be a hugely confidence-boosting goal, and them being able to rely on him even more so will be, just an extra string to their bow.
Yes. Well, I mean, I think when we were talking about Hoffenheim earlier in the season, we were talking about the lack of balance in this squad, and the fact that the likes of Petre and also Bebu were playing as wingbacks, even though they are natural strikers. Far too many strikers in the squad, far too many central defenders in the squad. But what Matarazzo has done in sort of a 3-3-2-2, I like to call such formations, particularly the wide ones, where you have the wing backs out there and you have a solo 6 working in midfield, is that he's found the right mix. Grilic has slowly found his Bundesliga legs again. My hero, John Anthony Brooks, has long since found his Bundesliga legs. As Mark mentioned, Grisha Prömel is sort of a cult footballing hero in German footballing circles, or at least he was, until he decided to go back from Union Berlin to Hoffenheim after talking up his, how important Union was to him. Maximilian Bayer, he was not called up to the German national team this time. He's still with the U21s, and he seems to be satisfied with that. 5 league goals this season. Interestingly enough, particularly in the first half, it seemed to me that Weghorst's job, Bayer's striking partner, Weghorst's job was to drop back and hold the ball up and feed Bayer, which actually you saw a lot of that from Harry Kane in the Bayern match as well. Kind of a German thing that of German coaches, and we can call Pellegrino Matarazzo a German coach at this point. He's he speaks excellent German and has really worked in this country in the Bundesrepublik for a long time. They're all about having big burly lead strikers work back, work deep drops, and affect setup play. So I think that Matarazzo has done well in that respect. Very, very unfortunate injury problems for Bremen in this match. Olivier Deman was not available. Niklas Stark was not available. There was a back three of Milos Veljkovic, Nikolai Rapp, and Marco Friedl, which tends to spell. I didn't really necessarily have confidence in that from the start. I did cover Friedel's post-match interview in which he called his teammates stupid. I think he was referring to himself as well for the late conceded goal. Emotions were running high. He was very, very disappointed that after they scored that late equalizer, they conceded yet again. So Jinma, I think, had a goal very, very narrowly disallowed for offside. It was a good fight back from Bremen in the second half. They really put on an entertaining show, and you felt for them because they seemed a little bit snake bit on this particular day. You mentioned the Naby Keita injury. It has been confirmed by Ole Werner that they were planning to take him off in the 60th minute to give him a reduced shift, and he pulled a thigh muscle in the 59th. So 1 minute before, it's just horrible hard luck for Naby Keita. And Bremen's still a good team. We still have not seen the best from them. I'm still a massive Rafael Santos Borre fan. I'm sure he'll find his legs. I really like Damon. I think Leinen has potential. Ole Werner is not going to be the kind of coach who's going to change his tactics. He's going to stay with that 3-5-2 double stack throughout the season, just like Bo Svensson, just like Urs Fischer. And eventually he'll get some results out of it. A lot of entertaining matches with the Hanseaten. I highly recommend tuning into them in any event.
Absolutely. Just come to a question before we move on to our featured game of the weekend, the top one in from Travis. Love the show, guys. Thanks. Too kind, Peter. A preschool daycare background. Absolutely not. We absolutely love your background, Travis. It was fantastic. Last question. The top three look set. When you say that, Travis, and do you actually mean Stuttgart set in the top three? Anyway, before we come to that, who will get fourth spot? Will BVB get fourth or RBL? BVB look blah. So we'll take the comment off there so we can see all of Peter's head. Interesting question in regards to who will maybe make up the top four right now. At stage of the season, we like to kind of do these little, or where do we think teams might come? Of course, we're always reacting to the last set of fixtures. So, chaps, we'll put ourselves on the spot. Why not? Just for a bit of fun. If we had to select our top four, that will, present after 34 fixtures at the end of the season. As things stand right now, from what we've seen after 7 fixtures, who are we back in to make up that top four? Obviously we can throw in Bayern and Leverkusen as dead certs, I think. So what are we thinking about places 3 and 4? I'll hand over to you two. I don't really want to say VfB Stuttgart just yet. So Mark, what are your thoughts? 3rd and 4th place right now from what you've seen. Who was the most convincing?
Yeah, I still think you've got to put Dortmund in there. I think we'll talk about them a bit more later, obviously, as our main game. But I think Dortmund are a funny team. We will come on to them more specifically with the game, but I just think like they are a top 4 side. You know, they've not hit the strats, but they've still got 5 wins and 2 draws. So I think that says everything you really need to know about them. You know, they're a funny team, but they're one of those teams that have just got goals at all. That's one of their big advantages, is that all of their players on their roster can score goals. So, like, I mean, they're never out of games. That's the thing. And the team comes in and out of form very, very drastically, but there's always someone that steps up and wins the game, you know, and that's their advantage, basically. And I think they will get top 4. I wouldn't even say they're out of top 2 or even the title race yet by any means, to be honest, Dortmund, because they can get a lot better than this, and they're still winning games. And you know, and I would say probably 4 that I hate to say it, guys, but I don't want to sound boring, but it's going to be the Rasenballsport Leipzig, Germany's favorite club. Despite their absolute horror show, by the way, this weekend, my God, like they're going to be having sleepless nights, 2 missed penalties in a 0-0 draw against beleaguered Bochum, who conceded 10 goals in the previous 2 games. So that's a horror result for them. But at the end of the day, they still are a very strong team. And as much as I wish Stuttgart well, I think there will be eventually a drop-off in this kind of incredible form.
Yeah, as Danny says in the comments, don't be jinxing us just yet. So let's just put them aside, and we'll do what we do in the background. Peter, just are you disagreeing with anything that Mark's just said? I wouldn't change that top 4 that Mark's alluded to at this point.
Well, the top 4 the Germans won obviously has VfB Stuttgart in it rather than Rasenballsport Leipzig. The problem, and we spoke about this on the show a couple of weeks ago, Mark and I did, is that we have 2 continental championships in January. We have the Africa Cup of Nations and we have the Asian Continental Championship, which means that Stuttgart are going to lose both Guirassy and Silas to AFCON, and also Hiroki Ito, the new left back, or to the Japanese national team, most likely, along with Wu Yongzhong, who is still at they did win the Asian Games. The South Korean
absolutely smashing it.
Yeah. So Stuttgart are going to lose a lot of players in January, and that we have to take into account. And we'll get to Dortmund now, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question, Travis, and glad you're still enjoying the show. Yes, first most entertaining game was the battle of the VAR decisions, which ended up being 4-2 to Borussia Dortmund against beleaguered and struggling Union Berlin, who at least allowed Bonucci to smash the penalty home, which was rather shocked to see on the scoreline. But anyway, lots of interesting moments, particularly in the first half. Found it incredibly exciting and hard to keep up with at one stage. Of course, Dortmund going ahead through Niklas Füllkrug, getting 2 on the bounce. So positives around that, at least for Dortmund. Well finished after, being in the right place at the right time, I guess, but that's a good skill to have for Füllkrug. But then the game, this is where I probably lose all sense of time and goals scored and not counting and things being disallowed. So there were, I think, a spell of 3 disallowed goals in a row. So Union were level, and then it was disallowed. And then Dortmund scored, and then it was disallowed. And then Union scored after that. I might have got that order wrong, actually. But anyway, Mark, you can maybe make more sense of it all. After Goossens had a deflected effort off Füllkrug that went in from a corner to make it 1-1 officially. And then Bonucci put in the penalty away to make it 2-1. I mean, what are your thoughts, first of all, in the first half and the kind of crazy nature of this match, particularly from a VAR point of view?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, when I was watching the highlights of this game, I was like, why was that Kral goal disallowed? Like, it just simply didn't look offside to me, to be honest with you. Like, I think it was Hummels had his hand, like, way out. I was like, surely that, like, in this day and age when goals are getting disallowed for nothing, surely that's got to be onside. But I mean, there's some, nowadays there's so many little rules. They've overcomplicated the offside rules so much that nobody even knows the rules anymore. So, it was an absolute sickener for Union, because to me, when I saw that, I was like, that's a goal. It's clearly a goal, And then obviously just a few minutes later, BVB, which would have been a really scrappy goal, by the way. I mean, it was a long loop free kick in, and Union's modern defending, which is just basically a car crash, unfortunately, nowadays. Since Bonucci went into the team, he was meant to make them a world-class defensive outfit, and it's basically fallen apart. But anyway, yeah, that one was ruled out for also a close offside. But for me, that was more offside than the other goal, basically, than the Union one. But yeah, I mean, the penalty, which again, initially when it was first given, you were like, really, is that a foul? But I think it was. Once again, Hummels, by the way, for the second week in a row, giving away a penalty, I mean, I know Germans love him, but for me, he's a little bit overrated nowadays. I really do believe that. Like, he's such a clumsy defender sometimes. And once again, went flying into Becker and just took him out. And it was a clear penalty with the VAR, which probably the only good thing Bonucci's done in 2 months at Union Berlin. He took the penalty away nicely and celebrated like he just won the Euros again after that goal he scored against England in the final too. But yeah, I mean, it was all good for Union. They were the better, not necessarily the better team, but they played a good first half, a really good first half. But then obviously in the second half, I mean, it's not enough closing down, which is something that you just can't accuse Union of usually. And Schlotterbeck hits an amazing strike. Like, that's what I was saying about Dortmund, that they've got pretty much every player in that roster can score goals. I mean, how many teams can have the centre half smashing a strike in like that from 30 meters out? But I mean, should Renner have saved it? For me, probably yes, actually, I think. Yeah. I mean, I know I'm sometimes a bit hard on keepers, but I always think when you get such a big hand on it, then you should be able to like push it that little bit further over or away. And I think when you saw the replay, it was an amazing strike, but it wasn't the most difficult angle for the goalkeeper. It was within his reach, and he just kind of got like a half hand on it and palmed it into the underside of the woodwork and into the back of the net. It was still a great strike from Schlotterbeck, don't get me wrong, but what do you think, Peter? Do you think he should have saved it, or am I being a bit harsh there?
No, you're probably right. He probably should have saved it. I mean, it was a great strike from Schlotterbeck. It reminded me of that one he hit in the Schalke match last spring. That was that draw. That really was. I as a German, I never really bought into the whole Borussia Dortmund crisis thing. I think I remember when we were. The three of us were getting together after the season. We were discussing the collapse of Dortmund, and we were talking about what kind of future do Dortmund have under Edin Terzic, with Jude Bellingham obviously going away. And it was my contention then, it was my contention now, that they have an extremely bright future under him. He is absolutely the right man for the job. He's a local boy. And he also pulled off a wonderful tactical masterclass this week. There was what he did was at the half, he took off Jamie Bino-Gittens for Julian Brandt, and then slid Emre Can, his anointed captain, who's been struggling, who was left off of Julian Nagelsmann's national team, and Hummels has been recalled. So and Schlotterbeck has been left behind. Everything that's going on with the German national team is revolving around Dortmund right now. It's insane. But so he had this. It was a beautiful constellation. I guess you could call it sort of like a 3-2-1-2-2 or something. I mean, so he had Kahn back on an inverted pivot, Schlotterbeck left, Hummels right. Marius Wolf and Julian Riasson were advanced as wingbacks. Royce all alone in midfield, but above the halfway line. Nemecha, Brandt, and this wonderful double striker access of Daniel Malen and Niklas Füllkrug that Terzic often switches to late in matches. And it's really, really effective, the two of them working together up front. And the real treat, I mean, this was another tactician's delight, this match was. What a freaking counter goal that was after Schlotterbeck's. That was incredible. That is a textbook. That is how you run a counter. And it was beautiful in every last respect. I mean, Royce was, he took the ball, he took some intelligent touches, he surveyed that. Both Malen and Füllkrug, they selected their lanes, they drew the coverage, and then he had Brandt wide open. And of course, Brandt's gonna finish like that. So, I mean, this was we talked about Hoeneß and how he's making all the right moves. I think Terzic is doing the same thing. And, this was okay. When you're playing against Union at this moment in time, things are not going all that well for the team that has now lost 7 straight on the bounce. They're missing their captain, Rani Khedira. To have Julian Rierson, the ex-Union guy, shoot in the 4-2 off of Robin Gosens, the man who they signed to eventually replace him. I mean, that's just like, what the hell? You looked at Urs Fischer's face, and it was you couldn't have. It looked like he got hit with a frying pan. I mean, that was insane. But I like what Dortmund are doing. I like Terzic, and look, you've got Hummels. I think deserves his recall to the national team at this point. Royce is really doing well. Füllkrug, Maaland, that sort of thing. I think that they're really good. I think that they're getting things together. And it was also the right move from Nagelsmann to leave Emre Can behind this time so that he can focus on the work with his club. And he brought up Robert Andrich, who's not even starting for Leverkusen instead. I really liked this match. It was a great football match. It was my favorite of the weekend. And, I didn't even cover some of those 2 disallowed goals. That was annoying. That was annoying as hell. That they had to reboot the VAR system in the Kölner Keller because the lines weren't calibrated properly. I thought I was watching an American football match for a second there. I'm like, what's going on here? Are you gonna give me an official commercial timeout? Am I gonna see like a Dortmund City skyline with the Budweiser logo coming on here and but it was a great match. Absolutely great match.
Did you guys see the Union fans at the end singing "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life" too? I thought that was superb. I saw a video of that, on social media, and the Union fans jumping up and down singing "Always Look on the Bright Side of Life." I thought that was superb. Yeah,
that's great to see. Smashing. So we'll just fly through the best of the rest in time to make sure that we have a proper kiosk club going into the international break. Headlines to take from the other matches: another huge win for Darmstadt, going away to Augsburg and winning. We've often, me and Mark have, gone on about Augsburg for year upon year about how they just know how to win these sort of matches, especially at home, and, amazing result for Darmstadt to go 2 in a row, and, newly promoted sides are doing themselves absolutely, proud, and that's smashing to see after a first couple of tricky games for them both. So really settling in nicely into Bundesliga life. Mark's already alluded to an absolute stinker of a game for RB Leipzig, missing 2 penalties in a home draw with Bochum, a very welcome point to the away side, and an absolute fancy killer for those of you who swapped out Girassi for Openda, which I did, and I regretted it massively, missing out on the hat-trick points. That was terrible for all you fantasy players out there. Then the Sunday games all went to plan for those home sides, and they 3-0 run out for Leverkusen. Man, they look so good. That first goal was just so slick and smooth. Hoffmann finishing it off. The wing-back play, Grimaldo to Frimpong, easy as you like. Leverkusen look smashing. FC Köln look in an absolute heap of trouble. Bayern 3-0 winners at home to Freiburg. And Christian Streich was interviewed in English at the end of the game, saying we'll need a lot of character and fight this season. So summing things up not so great for the away side, running into Bayern, who go marching on. And an important win for Frankfurt at home to Heidenheim, finally cut loose and actually looked okay, I thought, in spells. Me and Mark were kind of having a little bit of a laugh in regards to their striking options at the moment, obviously kind of based off the Ngankam horror penalty. Nothing against him, but when you look at obviously the options up front that Frankfurt used to have and what they now have, of course, they are struggling. But, important win. Good goal for Knauf to finish off as well. It was a good win for Frankfurt in that sense. So we'll still have a good 5 minutes or so, or however long Peter now needs to go through his kiosk club of headlines from the German newspapers and broadsheets. So, Peter, we shall hand over to yourself.
Well, thank you very much. You mentioned earlier that we are running out of words to describe Serhou Guirassy, and that was the case in the Sportbild. All that they can do is say Genie. Can't probably see this, or those who are listening on a podcast can't see, but merci, merci, merci. Why not? We'll do that for Serhou Guirassy. In terms of the other headlines, well, we have the Elfer killer Riemann. It should be noted that in this Leipzig-Bochum match, Manuel Riemann actually did save 2 penalties. So they're going to call him the Elfer killer. Elfer being 11 Meter in German, or 11 meters. That's how long it is from the penalty spot. In fairness, those were kind of soft penalties from Xavi Simons and Emil Forsberg. They weren't all that hard to save. The kicker is leading us into the international break with Rudi Völler explaining our Tante Keta. Mark and I often joke that, Rudi Völler is Tante Keta, or Auntie Kate, based on his curls. He's one of our... every German has an Auntie Kate, just like every Englishman has an Uncle Dave for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't but Tante Keta is speaking, and we're under serious pressure now. Things could not be going worse for German football. Our U21s are not good. Our women are not doing well. We've just made a coaching change. Everything is in disarray. We need big wins in the United States. We need them big. Gladbach got the Fohlen feeling. They're getting there. The Fohls are feeling it, and hopefully that is the case. I wanted so very badly that there were some headlines about Darmstadt. The big news, of course, is that Enrico Maaßen is probably about to get sacked after the Augsburg loss. There were no headlines about Darmstadt, but I wanted to mention that Darmstadt beat Augsburg, with Augsburg having both Philipp Tietz and Patrick Pfeiffer in the 11. Their 2 best players that they stole from them this summer. And they beat them anyway. If you want to tune in, it's a little backdated, but on last week's show, Rory is sporting his SV Darmstadt 98 tricot, which he got from Bundesliga boxes. And it's worth clicking on that just to see Rory flying the colors of the Lilies.
Had to be done. Thank you so much, Peter. Everyone loves the Kiosk Club, as voiced there by Danny and so many others. So fantastic to end on a lovely note in that sense. So that will do us for this week. Unfortunately, now leading into the international break. So, of course, no predictions, no fantasy this particular week, but we will be back, a week Thursday for predictions, and then fantasy football as well. Looking forward to being back and absorbing more enjoyable Bundesliga footy for match week 8. So, Mark, over to yourself to finish up things for this evening.
Yeah, definitely, guys. In this difficult 2-week break, I hope you all get through it okay. And obviously the German fans get at least something to celebrate anyway. Remember to check out our Twitter, @OverTheBarEpi and @OverTheBar Extra. Don't forget to check mine and Peter's vlogs as well. We've done, I think, 3 for you now, and hopefully we'll have the next one coming before too long. The latest one was Hoffenheim versus Dortmund, and we've also got Kaiserslautern Nuremberg, and also the German women's national team versus Zambia, which also ended up in a defeat for Germany, by the way. But anyway, enjoy your weeks, guys, without Bundesliga action, and we look forward to seeing you again for the build-up to Matchday 8 in about 10 days' time. So, enjoy your time, and let's hope Germany get a couple of wins on the board for Peter anyway. So see you there, guys. Bye-bye.